Here's another message for you. I'm in a cool place again. We're just in Wuishan and I'm doing a survey of this lovely tea plantation. Those are rocks, but there's also tea plants around. And I'm very sweaty and tired because I just climbed really. So on a day-to-day basis as an undergraduate researcher, I would do a number of different things, and it would be split between the field season and lab work. And I really like this part of the type of research I do. I'm either in the field collecting samples, running around to interesting locations, or I'm in the lab extracting DNA, doing PCR and other molecular work. And I really enjoy the heterogeneity of it. So as an undergraduate researcher right now, my work focuses on a couple different areas, but for the most part it's looking at the evolutionary history of different populations of the same species or a couple different closely related species that are changing and evolving in really interesting dynamic geographic environments. So in my sophomore year, I went and joined something called the PIRE program, that is Partners for International Research and Education. It was run out of the University of Georgia, and the focus of it was kind of to educate undergraduates and give them experience in both genetics, in this kind of ecological invasive genetics field, and Chinese culture. So the PIRE program took me to China for the first time, and they took me to China with the purpose of showing me both these different biological landscapes that were interesting, so from down to the tropical rainforest up to like the kind of cold grasslands. And we also went to cultural landmarks and were able to practice our Mandarin Chinese. My following two trips to China were with the Alabama A&M's REU China program. It's run out of a partnership between Alabama A&M and Nanjing Forestry University. So Nanjing Forestry University really became my home base over there. And from Nanjing Forestry, I conducted some more serious research in China. That was my first experience going to extremely remote areas to conduct this research. It involved collecting up a bunch of little, extremely rare frogs. And we actually discovered through both genetic techniques and morphological work that's looking at the shape of these animals and how they compare to other animals, we found what we think is a new species. One of my favorite parts of navigating China while I'm doing research is the interactions I have with kind of the local people out in the country. And it's really exciting because I'll sit down and have just kind of casual conversations with them in Mandarin, so it's kind of broken. But they're always very curious about, why two Americans are out there in the middle of their tea plantation and what are they doing looking around under the plants. And we end up showing them pictures of snakes and telling them about these animals that they've probably lived with their entire lives, and they get excited. We've had people knock on our hotel door at night saying, "Oh, there's a snake over there, you guys got to come get it." So when I was in high school, I actually wavered from this path of biology for a little while. I was, like any high schooler, wondering what I wanted to do with my life. And during that time, I met a lot of biologists who didn't have a job or couldn't get the job they wanted. And that influenced me into thinking that if I went into biology, at least in the current state, I wouldn't be able to feed myself. I wouldn't be able to get a good job and be productive. So I went into marketing for a long time. I took college courses in marketing during high school and networked and did all that. But eventually I made my way to UCF and discovered there are biologists working here, and they seem to be having a great job and they feed themselves just fine. Biology is always something I wanted, but even before high school it would seem like it would be very difficult. For about 8 years in my childhood, I was suffering from the symptoms of what's called chronic fatigue syndrome. It's kind of a little known, theoretically underdiagnosed disease, and manifested in many different uncomfortable symptoms, but probably what affected my life the most dramatically was I ended up sleeping between 15 and 18 hours a day for much of my childhood. And that, of course, had very practical implications in that I couldn't attend school regularly. I was what's called hospital homebound for about 2 years, where a teacher would come to my house. And understandably, I got behind in my classes, and I had to condense everything in my life down to just what seemed like a handful of hours every day. I look back on that as in terms of what I learned and how it affects my work habits. And I think I really learned to value every hour. So I think as a result of having CFS nowadays, I'm really careful with how I spend my time. I'm kind of a hard worker, as I've been told, and I really value kind of every hour, because I spent so long struggling for more time in the day, just fitting in a normal life, that now wasting time is unthinkable. The field I work in is changing rapidly. I'm currently sitting in the middle of a huge shift in the way we do our work, from Sanger sequencing to next generation technology, and it changes everything. And these changes are happening like every 5 or so years. And what I want to see my work do in the future is bring about a change like that. I want to somehow further the understanding of my field to such a degree that I make it easier and better for everyone in it.